So I have a story. Well, wait, before I say that, it is, we are doing Wear Your Heart on Your Sleeve Sunday in RE this Sunday for RE Spirit Month. So some of us are wearing our UU or our social justice themed t-shirts today. If you don't have a t-shirt and want to participate, or jewelry, you can pick up a sticker off the RE welcome table if you want a social justice sticker to wear today. So our story today comes from European folklore. I've seen it attributed to a couple different countries and places, mostly Italy. The version I'm using is coming from Ancient Stories for Modern Times, which is a collection by Faye Morgenstern. And it goes like this. Long ago and far away, there was a prince who never laughed. Never, ever. Now his parents, the king and the queen, were concerned. They wanted him to laugh and smile and be happy, but nothing amused him, nothing made him happy. The court jester was not something that amused him. He didn't like going to fancy balls. He didn't want to hang out with his friends or princesses. He just never smiled, never laughed. So the king tried to reach out to all the wise people in the kingdom, the sages, the philosophers, and the medical people, to try to figure out how to help the prince smile and laugh and feel happy. They came up with some ideas. They didn't work. But then they came up with an idea that they thought was going to work perfectly, and it was this. They had to find a truly happy man. Somewhere in the kingdom, they had to find a man who was truly happy and borrow his shirt. And then if the prince wore the shirt, the happiness that had been in the happy man would kind of ooze into the prince. That's a great idea, right? That makes perfect sense, obviously. And, the king and queen, they were skeptical of this, but it had been a long time. They've tried a lot of things. This didn't seem like a really dangerous or difficult thing to try, so why not? I mean, when your kids are unhappy, you'll do anything to try to make them feel better, right? So they sent out a bunch of advisors to look for the happiest man, or a man who was truly happy. They found a merchant. He had a big house and a beautiful garden. He had a wife and children. They were all smiling and laughing and playing. It was so good. He went to the merchant and asked the merchant, "Are you happy?" "Yes," the merchant said, "I'm very, very happy. Look at what I have. I'm so happy." And the advisor said, "Great, awesome. So there's nothing you want in your life. It's not like you want to be knighted or something." And the merchant was like, "Well, I would actually love to be knighted. That would be really, really cool. That would actually make me even happier." So he wasn't as happy as he could be. He wasn't truly content. So they found a priest, kind of walking, almost skipping. He was a young priest, very idealistic, very just full of righteous joy, just skipping down the street. And they asked the priest, "Are you happy?" The priest said, "Of course I'm happy. Look, it's a beautiful day. My life is so blessed. God has given me so much." And they said, "So there's nothing you want?" He said, "No, I'm fully content and happy." They said, "Well, what about becoming a bishop?" "Oh, well, I do want to be a bishop someday," the priest said. "That would make me even happier." So the priest was not who they were looking for either. Everywhere they went, people were happy but not completely content. People wanted more children or fewer children. They wanted a bigger house or a smaller house. They wanted, they were either too busy and stressed out, or they were not busy enough and bored. No one was completely happy. It seemed like maybe it was an impossible task, and the advisors were ready to go back to the king and report that they could not find a truly happy man. Then they heard whistling. They heard a farmer whistling. He was in his field, he was pulling weeds, and he was whistling. And he saw the advisors come toward him, and he said, "Oh, come on, welcome. I was ready to take a break anyway. Do you want some water and some fresh carrots?" Now, the king's advisors were used to eating cake and wine, but they figured they'd try water and carrots. Why not? And it turned out the water was actually very refreshing, and carrots were surprisingly sweet and crunchy. they enjoyed their meal with the farmer, and they asked him if he was a happy man, and he said, yes, I am very happy. And they said, well, wouldn't you like a bigger farm? And he said, a bigger farm? That would be so much more work. I wouldn't want a bigger farm. They said, well, wouldn't you prefer to be a merchant or a tradesman where you would have more money and more status? He said, if I were a merchant or a tradesman, I would have to work indoors. I wouldn't have my hands in the soil. That would not make me happy. They said, well, isn't your work hard? Don't you have to toil in all sorts of weather for a long time? And the farmer said, well, my work is hard, but my family helps me. At harvest time, my neighbors come and help me. We have more than enough to share. I'm very happy. So they had found their happy man. And the advisor said, this is awesome. The king needs to borrow your shirt. I know it sounds a little strange, but we just need to borrow your shirt for a day or two and we'll give it back. And the farmer looked at them quizzically, and he laughed a little, and he unbuttoned his coat, and he didn't have a shirt on. He said, I don't own a shirt. And it was true. So the advisors had to go back to the king, empty-handed, but not empty-headed, because they had discovered that the prince was going to have to weave his own shirt of happiness. And they had some ideas for how to help him do that. Thank you for listening to my story today.